And so how often in your own lives are you sort of having those same kind of thoughts, the kind of thoughts you're putting into your story in terms of like, I wish I could just go back 2 years, or these kind of like, as you say, lo-fi sci-fi thoughts? Like how often is that like a daily thing, you know, especially between you two? Are these the kind of conversations you often find yourself in?
That's funny. I was actually thinking about that the other day as I was like crafting a Twitter message. I was thinking, like, I wish I had a TARDIS from Doctor Who, the space machine. It's like I wish I had a TARDIS to go back and like start, you know, like try it over or do a couple things different. And then I didn't even tell you this, but I sort of geeked out over my own thought of it. I was like, well, but I can't, because I can't change my own timeline. Like, that would be wrong. And I sort of started carrying this thought of like asking myself this question of, would I change my own timeline, and should I change my own timeline? Then I felt really embarrassed that I was thinking these things. But I think it's human nature to sort of, I mean, to have these thoughts of like these interesting, I guess, inventions, that these sci-fi type of things that don't exist, like time machines and, you know, portals and, I don't know, flying space things. But I mean, I think it's human nature to really think of the what if, and I think that's what's so fun about sci-fi, because it's all about the what if, and then what. But it may be because we're also both really big geeks that we think about. I don't know how much the average person thinks about that.
Yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with time and time concepts and things like that, and that's why you know, the other aspect, the fact that Vikram, he has these photos, like that's why he's from the future, and he finds out that he's going to be responsible for all of these events, but he hasn't done them yet. Yet he has the entire path of his story laid out in front of him, and so you know, if they're noble things, is he noble? If they're bad things, you know, he just lets them happen. You know, what kind of person does that make him? And you know, the fact that he can't stop it no matter what he does. At what point does he give up trying to stop it? And then if something does change just a little bit, like let's say, for example, like all these pictures never change, but finally someone's looking left instead of looking right in one of the photos. Like, what does that mean for everything else after that? And those kinds of ideas I just find really, really interesting and fun to play with.
Just the idea of like, you know, predetermination or like destiny, or, you know, I think sometimes after something happens, like this is in real life, obviously you look back at something and you make connections on your own. You know, you're like, oh, well, that happened because of that, or I'm lucky that that happened because that led to this, and you're making those connections backwards. But then it's kind of fun to think about if like, well, maybe that's how it was always supposed to happen. And we have those throwaway comments all the time. It's like, oh, it was meant to be, or it was meant to happen, and you never really stop to think of like, well, was it, like, is there something that's driving that? Like, I don't know.
And if you can change it, how much can you change it?
Yeah.
I mean, does that begin to sort of freak you out when you really start to think about it, or is there something where you sort of embrace it?
A little bit of both, I think.
I think I kind of embrace it on a personal level. It just, yeah, I can relate to it.